A very good morning to you all. Welcome to Sunrise Daily. Today, I'm Chamberlain Uso, and we're getting a day closer to the 2023 general elections, which will happen in February. Wow.
Indeed, February the 25th is the date. We're counting down right here. Well, you're welcome to Lagos. We're up bright and early here in the nation's commercial capital. I'm Kayode Okikiolu.
Have you got your PVC yet? You have some work-free days, I gather, coming up in Lagos. So go get your PVC. Good morning and welcome. I am Bukola Samuel Wenimo.
You know, speaking about work-free days, guys, I think we'll have to double-check on that because for the general elections, I mean, isn't there going to be work-free day, February and March, such that people can get themselves ready? I think we'll make our time and take a look at all of that and see perhaps what the government may be thinking, because lots of people expect that that should be the natural thing that will happen. But if you're an aviation worker, you need to listen to this again if you haven't heard it. The Minister of Aviation has said that, he says, look, they will no longer allow strikes, protests in the airports. And I know that some time ago, lots of people woke up to the news that there has been a lot of protests at the airports and flights were delayed, they were cancelled. And of course, you know how this could have huge tailback and affect a lot of things. So he's been talking to us saying the Civil Aviation Act of 2022 will kick in. They will no longer allow any of those, no matter who was aggrieved. And I think, guys, in Lagos, I know it can be a harrowing experience, even when those strikes are not on. And so you can then imagine when that happens to be the case, when you just jump into the roads and you know, thinking all is well. You know, that's the thing about the city. You never just know what to expect in some cases. You just wonder, what is it again? And so you guys have, there's a lot of shock absorber you need to develop when moving out these days in different parts of the country. But concerning those strikes, and when they do happen, I mean, how do you guys think that this will eventually play out from the minister now?
You know, I had to actually take a look at that Civil Aviation Act 2022 because it, of course, repealed the previous one. The president signed it last year. And it was maybe something that flew under the radar for a lot of people because it's not the Electoral Act, for example, that a lot of people, you know, was paying attention to and thinking this must be done. So it was signed last year. And, you know, looking through, I saw in section 29 where, you know, it says that all services which facilitate and maintain the smooth, orderly, and safe takeoff, flights, and landing, and all of that, respectively, are hereby designated essential services under the provisions of Section 11, Sub 1 of the Constitution. So it ties back to that. And that one says that the National Assembly can actually make laws and, you know, decide what is essential, what is not. And for the Minister of Aviation, the point he was trying to make was essentially, well, I'm using the word essential again, that because the Act makes provision for that and the workers fall under that category, then, well, they should not strike yet again. And he gave examples that, imagine if someone was on that flight that needed medical attention, someone was trying to catch up with an examination and all of that. I mean, what will have happened to the person? Oh, that's fantastic. That is brilliant. That is great. But, I mean, you and I know how many times you've probably had some appointment, you've probably had some exam, you've probably had some, you know, work, some obligation, literally, maybe work, family, that was time-bound. You got to the airport well on time, in fact, maybe 2 hours before your flight, and guess what? You didn't leave up until maybe 4 hours after, 6 hours after. In some other cases, didn't even leave at all. And I mean, for me, I really wish or desire that that same energy will be put into ensuring that, since we want to ensure that people meet the deadlines or the, you know, time-bound obligations they have, we should put that same energy into ensuring that we reduce flight delays, flight cancellations in the country to the barest minimum. Most times I fly, I always just add a few hours to my flight. I mean, if you have, except as the first flight of the day, most times that doesn't fill, but subsequently just add a few hours to it because anything can happen. So the Riot Act is good, or in this case, the Anti-Riot Act, as it is, the Civil Aviation Act 2022. But how about we put that same energy into ensuring that we reduce delayed and cancelled flights? Because it's towards the same end, so that people can do their business meet up with whatever health issues they have, as the minister said, examinations and all of that. It's the same purpose. So how about we put all of that energy into that as well? I don't know. Isn't that fair enough?
Well, Kayode, that's a very good way to look at it, but it's also part of the story. For me, the aviation sector is a diplomatic mission of some sorts. So there are endemic issues in that sector that have not been looked at. They're federal workers, right?
Yeah.
What's the minimum wage? That's the first question to ask. I can't forget, too quickly, even though her name escapes me now, that aviation worker that discovered huge sums of money, millions of dollars to be precise, and she returned it. That's one out of hundreds of aviation workers who chose to be a worthy ambassador that put Nigeria's name on the map of the world, and her life was transformed as a result. But how much was she earning as salary at that material time? I think it was below 30,000 naira. So workers' welfare is key. If you go to the airport, it's a silent culture of begging that obtains. It shames me to even talk about it as a Nigerian, but this is what we all see, this is what we experience, particularly if you're traveling on an international flight. It's inevitable that you have to part with some sum, or when you're arriving, even those who come into the country, they talk about this, and they're embarrassed on behalf of Nigerians. So government must also do right by Nigerians. I wonder what the Act says about compelling government to prioritize workers' welfare, remuneration. These are issues that are at the heart of the matter. I say again, that sector is a diplomatic mission of some sorts, so it must represent Nigeria well. So besides the issue of efficient service delivery, in fact, workers' welfare is also at the heart of efficient service delivery. Chamberlain.
Yeah, workers' welfare. I mean, that's the reason why many people need to wonder, why don't we just ensure that we do the right thing so that there'll be no need for them to embark on any strike whatsoever in the first instance, because yes, you come up with the laws to ensure your dress, protestations, and strikes around the airport. Is there any such thing that criminalizes any employer or all of those who don't do what they're supposed to do, who flout the agreements, the contractual agreements they have with their workers? For instance, I mean, the Passenger Bill of Rights, that's an agreement that they should have with us, with passengers when you fly. And I mean, even though they try to remind us, yeah, it was drawn from Part 19 of the CAR 2012, wherein they list several things, and part of which is you can actually demand 25% of your air ticket, depending on the length of your flight delays, and sometimes if the flight is cancelled, you are entitled to compensation, which, by the way, that Passenger Bill of Rights, you're supposed to see it at the airport, pasted there so that everybody can read it. I'd like to know how many people even see it when you get to the airport. Is it there? Do you see it? Or are you so much in a hurry that you don't see? Maybe you should look again when you get there, because you can actually go up and ask questions. Ask questions if you feel you have not been treated fairly. So probably, who knows, the aviation sector might just be on an upward trajectory. Yeah, upward trajectory in that sector. That's the way to go, I reckon. Yeah, while we wait for you to give us your thoughts, we will just go right ahead and take you through some of the dailies. And we'll start off with Leadership newspaper today. Now, yes, it is the political season, and guess what is going on this time? Look at the perspective of leadership here today. Remember the Naira redesign, the currency matter, the cashless policy. Look at this. The Naira redesign, fuel scarcity targeted at me. Tinubu says plans to scuttle 2023 elections will fail. Blackmail won't save you. PDP tells Asiwaju. PMB's support for APC flag bearer unquestionable. Presidency. They were responding to an interview that was granted by an elder statesman, Yakasai. So all of that, all packed in here. And it may be a little confusing for you when you think, wait a minute, is the APC presidential candidate taking a jab at the presidency? I mean, are they not supposed to be on the same page? Are they not on the same page? Why does it come across as though they're not on the same page if you look at this headline alone? Maybe that's why you need to look at them from the context of the whole. But what about context of immediate setting? Doesn't it confuse us all? Well, oh boy. But you know, that is what new leadership is leading with here today. And then, still speaking about elections, this unfortunate incident just above that lead story. Ikone's death. Abia PDP heads for fresh primaries. The Electoral Act, you know, is just pretty clear, I reckon, on this particular matter. We could mention it along the way. We've got some lawyers coming in here today as well, so you never can tell. But that is it with leadership today.
Well, next up is The Guardian newspaper. Follows suit in that sense, leads with that story. Political it is. Tinubu jabs FG, alleges sabotage with fuel crisis, Naira redesign. And it looks like there's maybe something about Ogun State when the presidential candidate of the APC visits. You know, it was the last time he made that that trending statement, and now this one looks like this one is also trending on all of the front pages. Is there something about Ogun State? Well, take a look at the riders. Attacking Buhari won't save you from defeat. Atiku mocks Tinubu. Stop going to Abeokuta. Oh, Obi taunts Tinubu. I promise you I didn't see that. Marketers hoard fuel, find alibi in revised LASG directive on operations. By the way, is it the directive about when to open and when to close if you operate on the highway?
I guess we'll have to look at the details so we'll be sure of what the directive is.
Oh, wow. Well, more riders. Marketers may sue NMPC over inability to deliver PMS. May, that's the operative word there. And again, Buhari back to PMS tracking as petrol scarcity persists. So that's the situation of a lot of Nigerians. And I mean, how have you been surviving? I'm actually curious to know for a lot of Nigerians, how have you been surviving? Because it looks like even power supply has dropped. It's now erratic. I mean, something you could look to. I mean, if you don't need petrol for your car, you need it for your, generating sets. Now power supply is not the very best. So
don't forget to add that they're paying more for power, even though power supply
and getting less power.
Yeah, and getting less power.
I mean, let's know how you're surviving. This forms part of policy formulation, really.
And petrol stations, very few are selling into jerry cans. It's the policy at some stations not to sell petrol into jerry cans.
Very, very tricky times for Nigerians, I must say. I mean, I've had conversations with people, and you just wonder, we don't deserve to be here, really. But there's more stories on the front page, and I do hope that all of these things happening will matter when you go to decide at the polls in the coming weeks. And you see, just at the bottom of the front page, Reps film rescheduled meeting with CBN on Naira redesign. Well, that's still on, apparently. It's just how many days now? 5 days to that January 31st deadline. So that's it on that one. But just one more for you. It's a sad one. Dozens killed in Nasarawa, Benue, Niger border airstrike bomb blast. And it's a lot put together. You might want to get more details right there. But it's a really sad one. In fact, that story is put in black. We need to get more context, more details into that particular story right there. There's a couple more right there on the front page of The Guardian newspaper. That story, U.S. announces visa ban on Nigerians, undermining polls democracy. The talk about the visit to Chatham House is yet to die down, and then the U.S. again putting out this one, and I know that will always come up, the questions about, what role foreign countries have to play in our elections. Or
absolutely.
Otherwise. Let's leave it for The Guardian.
What form of endorsements they have for, who eventually emerges president of Nigeria.
Well, they always say we won't interfere,
But the Daily Trust takes a departure from politics this morning, and it looks at something very, very disheartening. This is how the lead story is, captioned. 38 herders killed in Nasarawa air raid. These are the riders. Our innocent members were killed by Air Force. That's MACBAN. drone used for shelling of pastoralists ascribed to Governor Sule. It is worst evil of profiling northern elders. Assures investigation, military mum. You find details on page 3, and the picture is a very, very vivid image of what may have transpired. Looks like a mass burial of some sorts. Buhari is not very clear now. It would have given us some insight, but it looks like the mass burial of those killed by the air raid. It's very sad, must be looked into, and of course the military should provide some form of clarity as to what exactly happened.
You're trying to read the caption on that.
The caption
one. Just in
underneath.
case you're wondering, it says
Yes.
bearer rights of herders allegedly killed by airstrike in Rukubi, Doma local government area of Nasarawa State yesterday.
Well, of course, the Navy carries out air raids now and again, but it's insurgents that are targeted, those of questionable character. When civilians, die like this, it leaves a very, very, bitter pill in the mouth. Our condolences, with MACBAN over the loss of their comrades in this sad incident. Above the nameplate, you find this one. Bandits reject 5.3 million naira old naira notes in Kaduna, say deadline approaching. That's an irony of some sort.
I thought they were non-state actors. I mean, do they
Of course
operate within the context of the Constitution and all of that?
Well, I really don't know.
That's an irony, really. Non-state
Yes, an
actors,
irony.
but they are actually
Rejecting the old naira notes.
They should be outside of the states. They should operate beyond the states. Isn't that what they call them? But you get the point.
Well, security operatives should go after them and get those old naira notes from, whatever currencies that they have. Look at this one right after that. Used vehicles import crashes 40% with customs valuation scheme. And down at the bottom strip is the political story drawing reactions. Tinubu fuel crisis, Naira redesign ploy to sabotage elections. We won't accept postponement, probe, Ashiwaju. That's ascribed to the PDP. And lastly, presidency, CBN, APC, mum. That's the Daily Trust for you this morning.
Take a look at New Telegraph today. Fuel crisis, Naira redesign, plot to sabotage polls. Tinubu, APC presidential candidate indicting Buhari, Atiku, Obi. That's ascribed to Atiku and Obi. Reps urge NNPCL to end fuel scarcity. Leave Naira redesign to next government, says Dixon, as Autonomy backs NAS on 6-month extension. So what becomes of this now? Because it's already started, and probably once the system is up, once they've mopped up some of those funds, how easy is it to get back? Isn't it going to cost us more if they stop the process? So who knows? Just thinking aloud in terms of what this means, the kind of impact it will have. But I know this responses, reactions, it won't stop. It will keep coming. That's the way it goes, really. But at the bottom strip, you'll see 2023 polls. U.S. slams visa ban on Nigerians, undermining a nation's democratic process. $0.2 million seized from Nigeria-bound passenger at U.S. So you might want to go ahead and read that one as well. Still a little bit more on politics, but it's above this lead story. Anti-party activities. Enugu APC moves to expel Senate President Nnamani. Others sets up disciplinary committee. So that is what you may want to see there. That is it with New Telegraph this morning.
Nigeria leads with something from the National Assembly, the Senate now. It says Senate jettisons Buhari's 22.7 trillion naira ways and means request. Yes, now that term is something a lot of people have gotten used to in the past few months. I mean, it's something they never knew about, but all of a sudden, it's right there in their face. And I should say that some people probably still don't understand what the ways and means, what it means really. But we'll get into that perhaps. We talked about that some days ago.
Yesterday.
Yeah, yesterday. The writer says CBN Governor Emefiele Finance Minister Ahmed failed to give details of request, suspends plenary for elections. Ways and Means, just let me put it out there, essentially some sort of advance given by the CBN to government to, of course, tackle issues of the economy and spending. So that's it on the front page of This Nigeria, the big story. And of course, right below the big picture, PDP to conduct fresh Guber primary in Abia to pick a Connor's replacement. It was quite sad news yesterday. And you see below it, Ikpeazu Ohaneze Obi Mourn Passage. Still on the front page, Nigeria gets $538.05 million from AFDB, others for agro-industrial processing zones. You recall that conversation we had with the AFDB at some point. You should go on our YouTube page after this to check it out so you'd understand what this is about. Maybe it's even coming close to you and how you can be a part of it, because it's meant to actually create jobs and all of that across the value chain. So that's something to definitely look out for, the agro-industrial processing zones. That's This Nigeria for you.
Speaking of going on our YouTube page, you talked about Ways and Means earlier. Mr. Taiwo Yedele broke it down pretty much for us, what exactly it means. So if you visit our YouTube page and watch yesterday's edition, you'll get a better, clearer understanding of it, just in case you missed it. From This Nigeria, let's flip to the Nigerian News Direct this morning, and politics is the name of the game. Opposition hoarding fuel to sabotage 2023 presidential election. That's ascribed to the presidential candidate of the All Progressives Congress. Kadi says there's something about Abeokuta that trends as far as political rallies are concerned. Well, perhaps the presidential candidate knows something that we do not, or we're going to find out later on the program.
Maybe, perhaps. I mean, it's something you should look out for. But I still need to understand this. So this says opposition. Others say FG.
FG?
So wait a minute. Is government opposition here, or this is another angle to look at this?
Can the opposition hoard fuel?
Wow, interesting.
The opposition is no longer in, is no longer the ruling party.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
But you know what, you need to stay with us for that conversation.
An error in the rendering of the headline?
Angles to that one, definitely.
All right. Take a look at this one right after that. FG goes tough against aviation workers, says union strike now prohibited. Well, I guess we'll find time to look at this a bit more. We should be speaking to all of the different angles to this story. But there's also this one right underneath that aviation story. Nigeria's debt, 22.7 trillion naira. CBN's Ways and Means loan to FG suffers at the Senate. The Senate president was saying that the finance minister and federal government officials of that ministry didn't provide details. Hence, plenary on that has been rescheduled. Of course, we'll find out what that means, for a whole lot of issues in the coming days. I imagine what it also means for the incoming administration. Well, we'll get to know more about that. Above the nameplate, also there's a story bordering on the economy at the middle, to be precise. CBN disburses 114.17 billion naira under 100 for 100 policy. You'll have to delve into News Direct to understand exactly what that means. And this one is right beside it on the right-hand corner. Imo, gunmen attack checkpoint, kill 2 policemen, VIO personnel. Just a few weeks to the election, and policemen are being targeted in the southeast. This must be looked into such that voters can feel confident about coming out to exercise their franchise in that part of the country.
Absolutely.
This is totally uncalled for. It's sad when policemen or any individual at that is targeted for no just cause. This is really sad. Well, lastly, before we exit the Nigerian News Direct, 2023 BVAS will retire fraudulent politicians. has ascribed to the electoral umpire, and Nigerians are looking forward to just that. Let's leave it there now for the Nigerian News Direct.
Well, Nigerian Tribune has this for you this morning. Fuel scarcity, Naira design, ploy to sabotage election, Tinubu. So it's something that we've seen consistently on all the front pages. It looks like it's going to be a conversation that will trend for some time. Tinubu shedding crocodile tears, attacking Buhari won't save failed campaign. That's from PDP. And of course, that story about the presidency's response to Tanko Yakasai's statement. A couple more stories, really. Why I dumped APC, Bindo. That story is also there for you. And just this one, Nigeria at risk of incurring additional 1.8 trillion naira debt. Senate fails to pass 22.7 trillion naira Ways and Means bill. The Senate says we have to do what we have to do. We're going on some sort of break for campaigns, and that's something we need to talk about. It looks like a lot of government officials, elected, appointed, are actually just focused on elections right now.
Left their duty post.
Yeah, really.
Just say it directly.
Really, and that's what they tell you. For the first few months when they get in, they try to get a hang of governance. And then for the last few months again, they're focused on election or re-election, something we really need to look into. But
and I recall President Muhammadu Buhari had, said something about this ahead of the campaigns. He warned elected officials, to be focused on the job and not allow campaigns to distract them. But this is what we're having now. You find them, at the forefront of campaigns, elected and appointed, really working hard ahead of next administration.
Oh dear, I mean, it is what it is. But you know what? It's just a starter for you this morning. That's a look at the dailies on the program. But we'll take a moment and be back with a big story of the day. You recall the Constitution Amendment process, what we've been trying to do for years now. We've gotten to a point that we now need to look at it and see the way forward. That's the next topic on the program. Please stay with us.
With this squad app, I think my customers will understand that it's my own POS. No wuru wuru, no waka waka.
Well, it's been years in the making now. It started as over 60 bills that were brought up, and it was cut to 44. The National Assembly passed it to the state assemblies. Right now, only 35 have actually been assented to by the state assemblies, and it's hoping to, move on to the president for assent. But as you may have seen, something sticks out, and that is the local government autonomy, both financial and administrative. A lot of people are wondering, what really happened? And as you've seen, we have joining us on the program this morning, right here in our Lagos studio, Dr. Monday Ubani, who is the chairman, section of public interest and development of MBA Speedle. Good morning. Thank you for joining us on the program. We'll be getting to meet our guests in Abuja just in a moment, but let me start with you, Dr. Ubani. I mean, I haven't seen the background and the clamor for what people have termed, is it federalism? True federalism, even though some people say, is there anything called false federalism? With the latest, will I say, rejection now of this local government autonomy, something that a lot of people have thought that maybe we agreed on this, everyone was on the same page. Do you see maybe between the lines here? Why do you think that the state assemblies will actually reject something that a lot of people have said is critical to the success of our nation, governance particularly?
Thank you. We have engaged in this patch method of amending our constitution, and some people have argued that this patch method may not take us too far. But we have indulged in it over the years. I think this is either the 6th or 7th amendment now. Now, it gives the State House of Assembly power to concur with whatever has been passed by both houses at the national level. without their concurrence, you cannot amend the Constitution. And that is the provision of Section 9 of the 1999 Constitution. We were very happy that the National Assembly agreed with local government autonomy. The issue of the joint state account has been a honey pie for the governors. Yeah. They've been using it over the years to deprive development at the local government level. They forgot that the greatest empowerment we can do to Nigerians today is to ensure the basic provisions of infrastructure at the local government level.
But they will disagree with you on that.
Yes, I'm coming. I'm saying that the greatest empowerment is not wheelbarrow. It is not motorcycle. But the fact that you have good roads at the local government level, you have light, constant light. I may not want to go to UK to go and spend my holiday. I may prefer going to my village because there is constant light, there is road, and there is security. Now, you and I know today that Nigeria is not properly policed. There is no security in Nigeria today, and it starts from the local government level. As long as you have not empowered the local government chairmen, who are the chief security officers of the local government, to take care of the environment, we'll keep on having state of insecurity. So the governors have discovered that local government money is a honey pie, and they have taken Nigerians hostage from 1999 to date. And that is why there is no development going on at the local government level and Nigeria generally. And we thought with this National Assembly amendment that Nigeria will soon be out of the woods. And we were rejoicing, only for our joy to be killed by this rejection, because the governors have taken over the State House of Assembly. And whatever they tell the governors to, the houses to do, that is what they do. And that is what has just happened. And I think we are here to enlighten Nigerians that we must not allow this. If you really want to develop Nigeria, we must allow development to begin to take place at the local government. You come from a local government, I come from one. I'm from Ikuano in Abia State. There is no major development that have been, or any infrastructure, key infrastructure, from 1999 to date. Meanwhile, millions or billions of naira have been allocated monthly, if you calculate cumulatively from 1999 to date, to local government. There is no development. I'm coming from a particular place now. The road leading to my estate is not, and I expect the local government to have done that. The same thing in my village, because of the fact that we don't have any person we can hold responsible with the local government money that comes every month. Allocation that comes in millions. And nothing is happening. They started first by not allowing democratic election at the local government level. I'm in court over that. Most of them now hurriedly after that court action organize fake election in which those men who were elected, are still regarded as transitional council chairmen, because the money that comes in does not get into their hand. The governors take them as source. I don't know whether you're aware of the story 2 days ago of a governor that used over 100 and something million to organize a welcome rally for the president in a state where the president comes from, Katsina. And what money did he use? Local government money. And FIU came up with a policy that they will not allow wrongful disbursement and utilization of local government. We were clapping for them. All of a sudden, I don't know whether those guys were compromised. EFCC do not do anything with the money that comes to local government every year. ICPC, and we've been crying, believing that with this autonomy, the local government chairman now can assert themselves and say, this money is belonging to my local government. Allow me to use it to develop my own environment. All of a sudden, we are missing another opportunity of using law to organize our society and organize our country. It's a lost opportunity.
But Mr. Obani, we seem to need robust conversations as far as the disposition of the Constitution is concerned about local government autonomy. Because the position of the governors is that the Constitution doesn't recognize them as an independent governing body at the third level, that they are appendages of the state government. You are a lawyer. Is that what the law says? Do we need more interpretations from the court?
Yes, the correct position today is that there is a provision, I think in Section 7, that says that the Constitution must ensure, or the local, the state government must ensure a democratically elected government local government council at the local government level. It's there in the Constitution. And before you can create a local government, it has to receive the concurrence of the National Assembly. So what more provision are we talking about? What we're trying to do now is that we have 3 tiers of government. We have the state, we have the local government, we have the federal. And the Constitution has given assigned responsibility to the local government. This issue of market stores, roads, even buying transformers and some of the electrification process is assigned to the local government.
Guaranteed under the Constitution.
It's there in the Constitution. They can do market stores, issue of burial, taking note of those who are, who are born and those who die. It's local government responsibility. So what are they talking about? That there is no provision for them to exist independently. And now the Constitution made a mistake of creating what we call joint account. It is just that joint account these people have used over the years now to hold the country down. And we're saying, let's now try to separate local government from the state government. Let them not be tied to their prompts. Let them remain independent in their financial disbursement. As the money comes, let them use the money now to develop the local government, which is what this particular amendment is all about. But they have rejected it.
So how material is the NFIU's victory against the governors at the court on this rejection as expressed by the National Assembly?
Now, the NFIU came up
by the governors, rather.
They came up with a policy, and then pronouncement, and even backed it up with a court action that the local government funds should be actually utilized by the local government, which was something that was really commendable, and we're very happy about it. But the NFIU have not gone further in ensuring that that money that comes to local government goes to them directly. The governors still interfere with the money, and then make the local government chairman to sign that they have received the money in full. That is one of the scam, in fact, the greatest scam that is being committed against Nigerian people is that the local government chairman will sign that they have received 1 naira, whereas the money does not get to them. Rather, they are giving money to go and pay salaries of workers, and then they pay salary of local government chairmen and some of the officials, and give them a little for their security vote, and that is the end. The other money goes to the governor, who does whatever he wants to do at his whim and caprice. It's been on over the years.
Well, Dr. Bani,
yes,
pardon me, we need to go to Abuja now, but the money you talked about in that document flying around is actually over 500 million.
Yes,
and not 500 million, not even 100 million. In the document that has been flying around, and I'm sure a lot of Nigerians have seen that document. Well, let's go to Abuja now. Chamberlain.
Well, yes, Mr. Bani stated that Section 7.1 of the Constitution, which categorically states that the system of local government by democratically elected local government councils is under this Constitution guaranteed, and accordingly, the government of every state shall, subject to Section 8 of the Constitution, ensure their existence under law which provides for the establishment, structure, composition, finance, and functions of such councils. That is where we'll kick off here in Abuja. Uwemwoko joins us this morning. He is a senior advocate of Nigeria and a former Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice for Akwa Ibom State. Good morning. Thank you for coming.
Good morning, Chamberlain. Thanks for having me.
Well. Mr. Obani starts off with that part where he says, look, that is guaranteed. So upon that guarantee, how come it doesn't appear as though they recognize it as though, yes, it is indeed guaranteed? Because many think that local government in this country doesn't actually exist under a democracy. I mean, I think you are of the same view, aren't you?
Thank you very much, Chamberlain. Let me thank you for the opportunity to join in interrogating these subjects. The truth of the matter is that sometimes we prefer convenience in interpretation, not strictly what the law should say and what it should be. The question of Section 7 has been settled by the Supreme Court in a number of cases, including Attorney General of Abia State and Attorney General of the Federation. In the issue that had to do with the Electoral Act of 2001, what powers are given to the state governments as it relates to the local government structure? Section 7 is very clear on it. They are to exist subject to the law made, enacted by the State House of Assembly. You've just read it out. The structure, composition, and all that. Democratically elected. All that is clearly subject to what the State House of Assembly will make. And what that also means is that it is directly under the powers of the state government. Nigeria, I think if we do a little back have recourse to the originating constitution that set up Nigeria as a country, 1960, 1963 Republican Constitution. What did he say about the creation of local governments? Local government have always been clearly under the control of the state governments. Nigeria operates a two-tier federal system, not a three-tier federal system. This incursion and encroachment into the powers of the state government in managing local governments were military distortions of our federal system. If you go back to the 1960 Constitution, 1963 Constitution, you will not find this. It was when the military started creating local governments for friends and colleagues and people here and there, so that instead of allowing the state government to create local government, the military now created a situation where they were now the one creating local governments.
Does that invalidate the functions of the local governments?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't, because already there is the doctrine of existing law has captured everybody down in. But the point I'm making is this: the incursion of federal powers, encroachment into the management of local government started with the military administrations. That is why you have, for instance, go to Kano. How many local governments does Kano have? About 48. How many local governments does Lagos State have? Less than 20, I think. But when you check the population of Lagos and that of Kano State, you see the marked difference. But it was supposed to be based on population, based on landmass, that you create these local governments. Now, coming back to this issue of control, so that I don't take too much of time analyzing what ought to be. The two tiers of government in Nigeria are the federal and the states. Section 7 and Section 8 make it very clear that the local government will exist subject to the powers and the laws made by the State House of Assembly. And so this idea of saying, oh, the local government should now come and be taking money directly from the federal is completely at variance with the intent of the Constitution itself. And so I was Attorney General, and we had these issues. By the time we are the same people that will argue, no, you cannot stay at Abuja and know what happens in the local government and interior communities. You cannot stay in Abuja and manage the security situation in the various local governments in the country. Why? Because we are saying that it is better for the state government and the local governments to understand the local dynamics that influence certain activities that lead to certain crimes management in their local communities. Because in every crime, there is a local content. So when we say that the federal government cannot stay in Abuja and manage security in various local governments in the country, why do we now say that the federal government should stay down in Abuja and assign money to the states and to the local governments under the states?
Is that what that is intended to do? Because they thought that it was supposed to ensure that local governments have their own funds directly, because they have specific functions that the law outlines that they carry out.
That is what I'm saying. It's a major distortion. The local governments were not supposed to operate without input from the state. At the time that the makers of this military originated constitution came to make it, they are the ones that created the distortion, trying to give these powers and existential provisions to local governments. Whereas these are things that should have been assigned to them by the state government under Section 7 and Section 8.
So if you could shed a little more light on what you describe as input, because the local government chairmen are also democratically elected.
Under the laws made by the state government.
Under the laws made by the state government.
Yes.
So their functions are guaranteed. So how do you then, what is the limit? What is the extent of the input that you describe?
You see, that's the point. That's the point. Let us get to the bottom and move up. The point is this: should the Constitution have given these responsibilities on its own to the local governments, and then come out at Section 7 and say the state government will exert their existence? It shouldn't have been. The functions of the local government should have been created and given to them by the laws made by the state government. But because certain persons wanted to just create some level of patronage for themselves somewhere along the line. That is why you have this lack of cohesion between Section 7 and 8 and then the schedules in the Constitution that tends to give these powers and responsibilities to the local government. It is their business. But before they have this, it should have come under the laws made by the state government. If you have already stood in Abuja under the Constitution and assigned responsibilities to local governments, what is the law that the State House of Assembly is supposed to make for their existence?
So when you say it should have and it didn't, can the local government then say, well, since it didn't, we can do certain things? That's on the one hand. But secondly, if it's supposed to be based on input from the states, these days, I mean, Mr. Bani did speak to some of those saying, look, these days there is little or nothing for the local government to do.
It's a very simple thing. The problem we are facing is because we are not running an ideal democracy. If we were running an ideal democracy where elections are conducted and the results of the elections matter, every state government would have sat up. I'm not trying to absolve the state government from what Mr. Bane said. Truly, there are infractions. There are encroachments on the powers and responsibilities of the local government. Their monies are not really getting to them in so many of the states, but not in all. But even then, the point that needs to be made is this. If the local governments were to have these laws as these responsibilities assigned to them, and the state governments don't give them the free hand to do it, every state governor that goes for the next election would have known that the state government, the local government, have the powers to mobilize their voters against that state government. That state governor will lose election. And he would have now put the state governors in check. And they don't abuse the powers that they're abusing now.
Isn't there something fundamentally wrong? When you say that the local governments, yes, though they're elected, but they had to carry out their functions based on the laws made by, what, the State House of Assembly and input by the state governments in their respective states.
Yeah.
Doesn't that, to a large extent, take away the essence of electing local government chairmen who are supposed to be directly responsible to the people that elected them?
No, it doesn't. Very simple. If these responsibilities were given to them by the laws made by the House of Assembly, all the lines, and it wouldn't have been a general thing. It wouldn't have been a national issue. Each state would have known the kind of laws that will make that fit its purpose based on its own understanding of its local dynamics. So it doesn't need to be that, oh, in all the local governments in the country, the same line of responsibilities. In all the local governments in the country, the same line of power. No. It's supposed to be a local thing because the state governments know more about the problems of each locality that make up the local government.
Even though the local government is supposed to be closer to the people.
That is the truth. The local government is closer to the people, but the local government also takes power from the states. It should not take power from the federal. We are looking at a two-tier federal system, not a three-tier federal system.
At what point does it take power from the federal government?
My friend Obani has just mentioned. You go to the federal government when you I
NFIU?
can't get it offhand. No. Get to the powers assigned to local governments under the schedule. The local government can create motor parks. Local government can take taxes from non-automotive vehicles like wheelbarrows, pushable trucks, and all that. Nothing that is motorized in any manner. Then they are responsible for registration of births and deaths, management of.
Those are functions outlined in the law.
Yes, in the Constitution itself.
So is that the federal government? Is that what you mean by federal government?
Federal government, no. What I'm saying is that federal government sat down under the Constitution and assigned these rules to the local government. These ought to have been things that were assigned to the local governments by the laws made by the State House of Assembly. So you go to various states now, like when I was Attorney General, you have several cases between the state government and local government as to who registers or something for what.
Okay.
Running a motor park, who is signages, And some local governments have problems because some local governments are headquarters, are state capitals. Some local governments are, maybe like you have 4 or 5 local governments that make up a state capital. So those local governments are in perpetual conflict with the state government as to the level who collect taxes.
Let me take you back to Mr. Bani. I mean, Mr. Bani, Section 7, yes, on the one hand. But when you look at Section 1626, where it states that the state shall then have this joint local government account for the purpose of payment of all allocations to the local government councils of the state from the federal accounts and from the government of the state. So, and then if you look at 1627, the same thing. Isn't that contradiction on the part of our laws that gives a lot of leeway to the states to go on the way they are?
I don't think there is any contradiction whatsoever. When we intervene on national issues, you know, we should be able to help the nation to be moved forward. That is what we're supposed to be doing. We should not in any way in our intervention retard the growth of this nation. If you remember in 1999, when there was a semblance autonomy for local government, I'm a witness. I come from a local government called Iguano. There was a local government chairman that time called K.C. Obaja. He was working as a local government chairman under Ojus Okano's administration. I remember that government of KC distributed transformers, dug boreholes in some of the local government, villages in my local government. Even issue of electrification, there was issue of distribution of poles and wire for them to electrify the rural areas. Because at that time, the money that the federal government in their wisdom, you know, those who enacted 1999 Constitution made a provision that money should go to local government. But the only mistake that was made was that money enters into a joint account. And let me tell you why that joint account was created. It was for the purpose of the state government to even bring their own portion, because local government is under them, to bring their own portion of the money to put in that account in order to ensure that local government have enough funds, because grassroots development is very key if you look at that Constitution. So we are talking about what 1999 Constitution provide. If 1999 Constitution has now given a role to local government, how can you now say that you're operating only a second tier? The same Constitution has given a role. The same Constitution said money should go to them directly, but the only thing is that it must enter into a joint account, whereby the government, is a state government, should now bring their own portion. Look at it, there in the provision. But what the state government have been doing is that they will now take the one that came from the federal government and now utilize it at their whim and cap prices, to their fancy, and not developing the local government. And as I said earlier, the little development that took place in local government administration was 1999 when Obasanjo was in power. There was not much interference. You know what the governors discovered? They now discovered that they will not even ensure that democratically elected government. They now start appointing transitional council chairman, or what you call caretaker. And immediately they start appointing the caretaker who appoints it, when you appoint somebody, you detect the tone. And whatever money that comes, they now interfere with it, and they were not giving it to them directly. That has been what has happened over the years, that there is no single development in any local government today in Nigeria, except some state governors that have this good intention for the people. Somebody like Godswill Akpabio, who was once a governor of Akwa Ibom. If you see what he has done all over in the local government, all over the state. Today, Akwa Ibom is one of the most developed states in Nigeria today. You go to Rivers State, where Wike is holding sway today. Wike is developing almost all the local government, road construction going on. It's only few governors that can utilize that money in order to develop local government. Other governors, it's only few of them that are doing it, using that money to develop local government. We are saying, what do we do in the circumstance when the Constitution has made a provision for money going directly to the local government and it's not getting to them? That is why the National Assembly now say, okay, let us give them financial autonomy, so that they can use that money, so that we now can hold them responsible. How can somebody be talking about second tier when we are saying that the governors are not allowing money that is going to local government to be utilized, and we are not experiencing development? And we are talking about 1960 Constitution. What does 1999 Constitution provide?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
Yes,
what
sir.
The 1999 Constitution provides and how the governors are perhaps going against that, because he has spoken about what ought to be. In fact, he says that it shouldn't be the federal government that'll be telling the local governments what to do. It should come from the state government. Ought to be, but apparently that is not what is. So the Constitution clearly states that the system of local government by democratically elected local government councils is under this constitution guaranteed. Does that imply that we have three-tiered government?
My take is that if the constitution itself has even assigned a role, a specific role to a tier of government, it then means that it recognizes its existence.
So we operate three tiers?
3 tiers, because it says the market issue of market store, he mentioned it, issue of even street light, road construction, market stores, registration of birth and death. It's local government that does that. So if the constitution has said that this is your responsibility, can you now deny the existence of that tier? It says democratically elected. Now, as I said earlier, they start interfering by appointing caretaker. That is where the aberration started and has continued over time. We as a country will look back, 1999, when there was a semblance of operational autonomy for local government, saw the level of the small development that took place until the governors, as I said earlier, discovered that, oh, we cannot allow this. Let's start appointing TCs, what you call transitional, council chairman. And since that time to date, they have never allowed local government to operate properly. You can't hold the local government chairman responsible. You can't hold the governors, because the governor will tell you, look at it, he has signed, receiving that money. The chairman, if you go to them, they say, my brother, I did not receive that money. So who are you going to hold responsible? So that is what the National Assembly, in their wisdom, I said, look, gentlemen, let's correct this particular problem by enacting a law granting them autonomy.
Right.
And having granted them, why would the governors now through the back door? So the governors are the cog in the wheel of progress. My Attorney General, my good friend, I saw him in Abuja just recently. We lodged in the same hall. He's my good friend. But they are the ones misadvising these governors. And that's why the country is not making progress. Can we move Nigeria forward, please?
You know, the section that wanted to be, inserted in this, constitutional amendments, the 6 parts, was saying that any amount standing to the credit of the states and local government councils and federation account shall be distributed amongst the state and local government councils on such terms and in such manner as may be prescribed by an act of the National Assembly.
Beautiful.
That was what was meant to be included, but then it was struck out.
Yes.
And I think that goes to the point that he was trying to make, that should it be the National Assembly, or at least the federal level, that dictates to the local government when the state is actually closer to the local government? And he gave the example of security, where a lot of people are clamoring for state police, saying that the federal police is not working because they are not as close to the people in some sense as the state or the local government. So in line with the clamor for state police, don't you think this also makes sense? Perhaps that's the reason that they saw and thought this might not work.
Yeah, you see, we are talking about what the law itself has provided in the 1999 Constitution. Enekedi Bey says that since men have learned, the birds have learned to fly without patching. Men also have learned to,
shoot without
missing. We have discovered over time that the state governors are not allowing this fund that goes to state government to get to them so that they can utilize it to develop the local government. And there is nothing wrong in now saying, can we enact a law to help the local government administer local government effectively? Because we know if we miss it at that local government level, it will affect the federal government. Let me just tell you today, gentlemen, what is happening today in terms of insecurity,
and
just
lady,
hear me. What is happening today in terms of insecurity is that the local government chairmen that are supposed to be chief security officer are not in charge of their local government. If my local government is properly policed, if your own local government is properly policed, 77 and 774 or 773 minus Bakassi is well policed by the local government chairman. Do you think there will be security in Nigeria today? There will not be. We are saying, can't we now allow governance at that local level, at that grassroots level, to be effectively governed so that we can begin to enjoy the greatest mobilization, the greatest empowerment you can do today in Nigeria is to develop basic infrastructure. The moment a road passes through this particular bush part, all of a sudden the prices of those land goes up. If there is light now, every part in that environment goes up. So we are saying, can we allow local government now to begin to develop our roads, electrify the environment, and people will relocate. My church members in Ikeja relocated to Akwa Ibom when Governor Akpabio was the governor, because of economic development that was taking place, and they have not come back up to now. You know why? Because of the economic activity that have been generated by the development of basic infrastructures. And it is something we should experiment. It's something we should go along with, because roads and lights bring development And there are no roads in the villages. There are no lights. And that's why people are all clamoring coming to the urban areas. I'm saying, can we suggest something that is practical to move Nigeria forward? And not about legalistic, oh, this is what the 60 Constitution provided. There are only 2 tiers. We are talking about 3 tiers now that can bring governance to the grassroots. Government now says, give them their money to do their responsibility. What is wrong with that?
So if this portion quoted by Kade is what is the gray area that is stirring debate, National Assembly members are legislators who also represent constituencies.
And they came from local government.
They come from local government. Shouldn't they have, raised an amendment to this effect that will bring clarity and end the ambivalence?
You see, as I said earlier, I started my statement by this issue of patch. Some people are clamoring that we should have a brand new constitution where members of this, citizens will participate in giving ourselves a brand new constitution. But the moment we keep on patching, amending, we may not get a perfect constitution because it doesn't come from the people. This is a military constitution, remember, with all the flaws. But with the flaws, we can still operate it the way it is and still achieve a result. But my only problem is that we have never allowed it even to operate. The law says you must ensure democratically elected government, local government council. Have they allowed even that to? I had to go to court. Most of the state governors that hurriedly went and organized, very horrible, election that is not an election, it was because we took them to court. My state government was joined. Several states were joined. They hurriedly went and organized an election that was not an election. Why? Because they used their state independent electoral commission also to organize what was called a sham election. Whereas if it is INEC that may have probably participated, it would have been a bit fairer and better. So I'm saying...
We're billed to go to Abuja in a moment. But just before that, Barrister Obani, you said something instructive earlier, that the NFIU victory secured at the court has not been followed up, with a clearer decision to ensure that the local governments now have direct access to their accounts.
Yes.
What option is open to the NFIU and by extension the federal government to do that?
NFIU should monitor the money that goes to local government every month. This money that comes, local government chairman, where is it? Which account is it? Because they were now supposed to go and withdraw certain amount. Exceeding certain amount, they will know. So where is the money? That is the only way. EFCC, all the ICPCs, follow this money to the grassroots. This money that has come to local government chairman, Mr. Man, where is the money? What have you utilized it to, within that month and all that? Nobody, follows up. We can't develop a nation like this. I'm saying that we can do these things. These things are possible. The abroad that we go to is because these guys are using their money to develop their basic infrastructure. And that's why everyone is jackpot. All our young ones are moving because the environment is not conducive. Can't we think and redo and rejig Nigeria and rebuild Nigeria? And it's possible.
It's quite sad when the laws that are meant to be made to develop people now looks like those laws are the ones impeding development. But let's go to Abuja. Quite a number of issues to raise. It's back to you, Chamberlain.
Oh, yes, it is, Mr. Nwoko. You heard your colleague there. Are you one of those advising these governors not to do the right thing and abuse the laws?
Dr. Obani knows, me and him, we have discussed this formally and informally. And I keep on telling him, he is one of the advocates of true federalism in Nigeria. He would argue viciously, very vehemently for power devolution. We want to have an ideal federalism. We want to have a federalism that works and shows it in practical terms. At the same time, when it is not convenient for us, we say, no, let's change the dynamics. If we want to have an ideal federalism, it must be on all strata, on all issues. If you want to make it work, as I tell people today, the problem is not the law per se. The problem is the implementation. This section 162 and 262 that we are talking about, all those sections that have to do with particularly creating this joint account. The problem is not that section. The problem is the implementation of that section. Like my brother has rightly said, even the state governments are supposed to bring their own internally generated revenue, some portion of it, and add to the joint accounts money before it is shared to the various local governments as they come. But it is not done. So the problem is not that section of the law. The problem is implementation. And how do we change to ensure that it is complied with?
No, I think what he's saying is that there's an abuse by the governors hiding under...
It's implementation. It is not the section.
No, there are two different things. Implementation and abuse.
No, what I'm saying is the abuse arises from improper implementation. If that section was to be applied the way it is, it doesn't require too much English to know that when the money comes in, I was a member of the joint accounts for years. For the 6 years I stayed as Attorney General. You have the Commissioner for Finance, you have a Commissioner for Local Government, you have a Accountant General of the Federation of the States that sits down. Or when the money comes in, if it were to be as the money comes in, oh, local government, A, this is your money, B, C, take your money down. From internally generated revenue, this is what we have brought in. And everybody takes home. There would have been no problem.
Isn't that what the government is trying to address when you now say they are interfering?
No, that's the problem. We cannot, because the section is wrongly implemented, we now change what ought to be a federation.
So how do we address this challenge?
Well, how do we address this challenge? Is to set up a system that will regulate itself. We is to set up a system where if a governor encroaches on the monies of the local government, he should fail the next election.
How?
Yes, because it is people. What are we using as campaigns today? You are not doing this well. You are not doing this well. You are not doing this well. It's the same thing that the opposition party is using to argue against the federal government. It's the same thing that the opposition parties are arguing against the state government. If we have an ideal system, all this, the law will not ordinarily have posed any problem. But as it is now, the governors are able to do what they are doing. Let me just give a little story. In about 2001, 2002, I was newly in Akwa Ibom State that time, and I took 2 pages of newspaper to challenge the state government gradual encroachment on these forms of the local government. It started little by little, Then it got to a point where in some states, the local government don't even see what is coming to them again. Okay. But the problem, the solution to it is not to now further constrict the federal system that we are operating.
We'll talk
by making the federal government be in control of
We'll talk a little bit more about that solution as we come back in a few minutes, and then just wrap up in a few minutes as well. Join us again. Welcome back. Our concluding moments now on this matter here in Abuja. Mr. Onko, when you say that one of the ways to cure this is to vote them out, many will say, look, we know better how our system works here. As much as we try to make it perfect, that will lead to even further abuse. They will say, well, don't worry. No, they will not vote me out because of this, because look at how difficult it is to recall one person from National Assembly. If it's that difficult just to recall one person, even though I say it's really difficult, how much more for a governor who has all the paraphernalia of office? How is it going to be possible to do that? So that's why the government thinks, look, put in place this law. If that law is there, they know if there's an infraction, you face the music, as opposed to waiting for 4 years. Are we supposed to allow them violate the laws for 4 years?
Chamberlain, we cannot solve one problem by creating another. Part of the major problem, and everybody has agreed, of the Nigeria's underdevelopment is constricting our federation. If we want to have an ideal federation and development that will spread across this country, we must take the bull by the horn and follow it up to the letter. It may not work out overnight. Today, we are expecting a more transparent, more credible election from INEC, because we are looking at the structures that have been put in place, the infrastructure, including the BVAS and all that. I believe that these are things that we can achieve. It may not be overnight, but it will be wrong for us because we have an immediate problem. And maybe something is pressing us on the leg. Then we now decide to amputate that leg. What we are trying to do is creating a problem that will be more difficult to solve tomorrow.
One more thing before we go. So when Mr. Bani now says, because you think that you are of the opinion that we'll have 2 tiers of government, but he says it can't be 2 because the law recognizes the local government area. So to that extent, they are 3 and not 2.
No, there are 2. The law, the constitution itself that creates that structure recognizes the state. When you go to when you get into the executive powers, legislative powers, judicial powers, nothing is mentioned about local governments. You check through from section 4, section 5, section 6,
Yeah,
section
but does that invalidate section 7 that guarantees the democratic elections?
Section 7 says subject to section 8. The local government will exist subject to the laws made by the State House of Assembly. And that settles it.
Irrespective of the functions outlined for them in the laws?
The functions that are outlined for them will come under the powers given to them by the State House of Assembly. They cannot exist without the laws made by the State. They cannot function. Everything that is done. That's why section 7 says the state government would ensure their existence under a law made by the State House of Assembly.
But by reason of them being elected, they already exist, don't they?
No, they exist. Yes, who elects them? That is why local government elections are conducted under the APC, like in Akwa Ibom. Let me use Akwa Ibom State. APC law. APC law is made by the State House of Assembly. So the election is not conducted by National Assembly. That is why on the 2020, the 2001 Electoral Act was cut down by half by the Supreme Court, because that act now made provision for conduct of election into local governments. And the Supreme Court said, no, INEC cannot conduct election or have any way to monitor election into local government except under procedure. So several provisions were nullified. And that is why only the state government can make law that conducts election into the local governments.
If the states have all these powers, how come the creation of local government, now LCDs in Lagos, was inchoate?
Yeah,
because when it says they don't have all the powers.
Yes, because that's a part of the military problem. When the Constitution was enacted, the Constitution specifically named all the local governments in the Constitution and called it 774.
All right.
And so you cannot add one local government to that without amending the Constitution.
All right, Mr.
It was a wrong thing to do.
Mr. Wemoko is a senior advocate of Nigeria and the former Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice for Akwa Ibom. So thank you for your time again.
Thank you very much for having me.
Go ahead, guys.
Well, Dr. Bani, let's wind down now. I know we can go on and on about whether it's 2 or 3-tier government and all of that. But yes, I know you might want to speak to that. Yes. But on a final note as well, so we have states that say, well, we don't mind having this autonomy, really. I mean, no big deal.
16 of them.
You know, I mean, there are reports that there's 16 of them, and others say clearly we don't. Maybe we also should look for some sort of amendment that says the ones that want it, you can have it. And the ones that don't, you can't have it. Maybe that's utopian, but I mean, what do you think about that?
I think that there are 9 states now outstanding that have not submitted their own input. So I want to use this national television to appeal to their conscience, because 16 have already voted in favor. So if you add 9 to 16, that would be 25, passing that threshold of
Assuming 20. That all of them
will. It's my plea. And that's why I'm using this national tele to plead with them. Taraba is there, Plateau is there, and I think Oyo is there and all that. Let the State House of Assembly really help Nigeria, because we will not experience any development if we remain with this issue of interference with local government fund by the governors. Please, let them agree to that financial autonomy. 9 plus 16 will make 25, and that gives them the threshold for that particular law, to be passed, so that we can have the president assent. Let's begin to be more proactive in our legislative process to help this nation. And I think that this is one of the ways to really help development. Let's accelerate development. If there is development in local government, it's the greatest empowerment.
And if they vote against, does it foreclose this debate?
If they vote against, it doesn't. Because we keep on patching the constitution until we have a constitution that is made by the people. I know that the next National Assembly may come up with constitutional amendment. Because when problems occur with the ones we operate in, then it gives us an impetus to say, okay, what do we do in order to correct the system, which what we have done with the Electoral Act.
So we're looking at a possible fifth alteration. But we have to thank you so much, even though I know you think that a new constitution is what we need altogether.
My state has a small problem.
Constitution.
Yes. My state, yesterday, the PDP's candidate died. And then they have an opportunity now, PDP, to probably replace within 14 days, as prescribed by Section 33 of the Constitution.
So how does that replacement work? Just quickly.
They have to organize a fresh primary election. That's what the law says, and present a fresh candidate. It's not Section 34 that will be applicable now, because countermanding means the process is about to start. Then you now countermand, in which case, again, 14 days, to organize another election. But this one is that the election of governors are taking place in March, and this date occurs in January. So you have 14 days to organize a fresh primary and replace, and then INEC now will now publish a new name. That is what I think will happen in this circumstance. It's a sad news for
very
PDP,
sad.
and then we condole the family for that loss.
Indeed. Abolish, thank you so much. Dr. Monday Obane is the chairman, SPIDO, that's section of public interest and development at the NBA. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
We'll go to break now. I won't return. Remember the front pages and the big stories regarding politics. That's our big story next. Stay with us.
All right, those two gentlemen join us this morning to get some reactions concerning what? Plot to sabotage polls? We'll find out in just a moment. So Daniel Bola is the spokesperson at Atiku Okowa Campaign Organization, that's the PDP. And sitting right beside him is Adamu Garba, Deputy Director Media, APC's Independent Campaign Council. Gentlemen, good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning.
Well, Mr. Garba, how do we explain this? Fuel crisis, Naira redesign, your candidate, the presidential candidate, Tinubu, says it is plot to sabotage him, is targeted at him and ensure that he doesn't breast the tape. How is that so?
It is very possible, and you know, somebody at his level, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who understood the power game, understood the fact that there are possibilities of some saboteurs that will definitely scuttle his chances of winning simply because he is a clear front runner in this contest. And this is not unhistorical, because even our president, the current president, Muhammadu Buhari, during the run-up to 2019 election, had similar experience, where the entire country was held to jugular around the same fuel issue. He had to come out and blame marketers and insist that there are supposed to be logistical arrangement that will make sure that the fuel is distributed across the country. But this is the same situation we are facing. When we are targeting the election, where we are in a clear majority, the remnants of the PDP within the systems are trying to also bring about their usual kidnapping model within the system, because they try to hold the system to jugular, to scuttle the chances of the APC. Unknown to them, that Nigeria is well aware of what is happening. And one thing again is that they are even trying to cash out from it, trying to bring the president and our candidate into collusion by quoting in the pages of their own newspapers that is actually, that Asiwaju is actually attacking the president, which is not the case. The president himself faces the same problem. Yeah, Asiwaju is now facing the same issue.
But the president is the minister.
The president is the Minister of Petroleum, but the Ministry of Petroleum Resources have the areas where government control and the area where private sector participates. In the area of logistics and distribution of petroleum products in Nigeria, we have to pass through the private sector. And so many of these private sectors are merchants that have entered agreement of sharing formula with the PDP. So they are trying to sabotage the effort of our government, as they used to do.
Do you have this on good authority? Are you privy to any of such agreements?
My candidate said so, and I want to believe him 100%.
Yes, yeah.
Mr. Bola, how do you plead?
Yeah, hearsay evidence is not admissible in court. But, you know, it is intriguing, actually. Yesterday, I started reflecting on what we have been seeing like a pattern, but now the pieces are coming together. Because at first, it was that INEC should discard the idea of BVAS. And INEC chairman stood his ground. Then we started reading on the pages of newspaper, there is pressure from the ruling party that the INEC chairman be sacked. The civil society came together and fought against it. That plan failed. Then secondly, we now started hearing that they have instituted a matter in court, asking that the INEC chairman be sacked. Then again, it failed in the court.
I think that matter had been on for a long time, though.
No, it was
that when INEC chairman.
No, it was instituted around the time the pressure came from the ruling party that he be removed, and the presidency says he's not going to be removed. Now, so after the second one failed, then suddenly we heard that the central bank governor is going to be sacked. The central bank governor is A, B, and C.
Yeah,
because
that was the DSS saying, I think it was what, funding terrorism, and then they approached the courts, which is a legal process.
Well, I have never seen the DSS physically doing anything to him, but I've seen a House of Rep member of APC cheering the committee. And every conversation I've seen in different platform, the House of Rep member. So they now went through that. And while that was going on, you remember, the House of Rep, as an institution, consistently maintained the position, even to a point where they were summoning him that there be extension. And when that failed, then now he has to go.
Yeah, but
now,
that's a usual legislative function.
Yes, but what I'm saying...
To invite the CBN and Bankers Committee.
Right, so what I'm saying is that which government is this? It's the government of APC. The president of the republic is the leader of APC. And I'm glad you reminded him, is also the petroleum minister. Now, Asiwaju, let me tell you a pattern that is going on. Before the primaries, it was in Ogun State, in Abeokuta, where he gave his famous I Have a Dream speech, a Melokun speech. And as soon as he gave that, a kind of pressure came into the system in APC. But even then, if you recall, the president said, no matter what the party comes up as a resolution, there must be voting. The president stood his ground in the party. That was why Asiwaju got the ticket. Now, that's one. So now he went back to Abeokuta because the first one that he used in blackmailing the president worked. So now he went there and they spoke in the same manner, thinking that by setting up the people against the president, because even if you pick somebody on the street, everybody knows the papers reported it was a war.
Are you then suggesting that he doesn't have credible information to say that this Naira redesign and this fuel crisis is targeted at me to sabotage him?
Look at the point. In fact, he said targeted at me. I take you back to that famous I Have a Dream speech, Emilokon. Emilokon means it is my turn. So everything that revolves in the country is about him. Let me tell you, the fuel crisis or fuel queue, we've had that for many times in the past 8 years.
Could you speak to that party where he says remnants of PDP are the ones who are actually doing this through the private sector?
Do you believe them? Who is the Minister of Petrol? So what they are saying is the president is incompetent minister. I'm even happy they are the ones saying it. So what is happening is, you know, they came out with a manifesto. The entire manifesto is war against Buhari's government, but they say the renewed hope. And we came here. I read that manifesto 3 hours flying from France to Nigeria. In 3 hours, I dissected. When I finished, I said, this is a manifesto that is built to depart from the president because they adjudged the president and his government as a failure. So now they are coming back again to say the president has failed.
So, Mr. Gaba, does that suggest you're not on the same page, your candidate and the president, the leader of the party?
You should expect that the former Asiwaju warrior, you know, Daniel Bala, should try to cash out in his new strange home. You understand? So you should expect this opposition. In the first place, I want to correct that the reps member that he mentioned as an APC member is not. He's actually an ADP member. He's no longer, Budaje Kazoro is no longer an APC member. He didn't win its APC ticket. So we can even say that he's actually attacking us, you know, maybe to advance his interests. That's the case. And the second thing is that this is one of the most transparent government ever instituted in the history of this country. That's the government of President Muhammadu Buhari. Why did I say so? Because he allowed the legal framework to take its course on every situation. You don't expect him to be like the way PDP used to do, to go and hold somebody to jugular, even though there is a legal impediment towards that.
Answer the question.
There is a law that established the operation of the private sector in the overall supply chain of the petroleum industry. You don't expect the president to go and say he's going to break this law and hold them accountable simply because they are doing something wrong.
Yeah, but if they flout the law should take its course.
What is flouting the law? The thing is, you have logistical challenges. They are trying to cash out of the logistics challenges to put pressure on Nigerians to go to the candidate that used to give them money. Because when Atiku was the president, they all cash out big time. So now that President Buhari is in charge, they lost out for almost 7.5 years. Now they see again in the renewed hope manifestos of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu is a perfect consolidation and continuity of the establishment of President Muhammadu Buhari's structures.
You don't think that what he says is you're dissociating yourself from this current government?
I don't believe he read the new manifestos. I think he's confusing it with PDP manifestos, that 5-page manifestos they drop. I think he's confusing them with it because they are the ones that are trying to do everything possible to scatter whatever President Muhammadu Buhari has done. But in renewed home manifestos, every single line of that manifesto, from the macroeconomic policies to microeconomic policy to industrialization policy to housing policy to education policy, to agricultural industrialization policy, to security policy, is a perfect consolidation and continuity of President Muhammadu Buhari's plan for the past
The second part of this, and speak to this if you will, where many think, in fact it's been said in several quarters, that your presidential candidate or his team, or his party, his associates are actually the ones behind the persecution, quote unquote, of the CBN governor as a result of this Naira redesign policy. Is that correct?
How can that happen, for God's sake? It is a central bank government, an independent institution within the constitution of Nigeria. Central bank is a standing institution, and central bank came up with a policy that said they have to redesign the currency because of PDP's arrangement to stack so much money. They used to do that during their government. You know, you go to Sokaway, you see PDP's money. You go to farms, you see PDP bury money. They have done that. About 85% of the money. I'm coming now. 85% of the money. 85% of the monies that are supposed to be in the bank are in private hands. The CBN say, I want to redesign this. And they started fighting him. That is the situation. The same PDP, you know, that has been attacking us through the foil issue are the same group of people that are also painting that there is a fight between our candidate and central bank governor. Meanwhile, we on our own part, we are 100% behind this currency redesign. What we are saying is that let the whole country come together to support the distribution of this naira to reach the common man. If the same PDP and also the remnant of the opposition, some of the saboteurs within the system, can allow INEC to distribute its PVC cards across the whole country to each and every street from 12th of December till now, why won't they allow naira to go to every village too?
Let me tell you why I am just smiling and happy. Because it is in the same breath and in the same mouth that he condemned the central bank, that he now said it is an independent institution that is redesigning the naira because PDP has stashed money somewhere. So then if that is what you're saying...
No, he said the party is, they support the policy.
So if the party support the policy, who is the candidate of the party? And what did he say yesterday? He was so derogatory towards the policy. We should be the one to say this naira just changed color. He said you can even add ink to it. No, let me finish. I did not interrupt. So you can see the conflict and contradiction. The government is that of APC. I hope you know that the central bank governor almost ran for presidency in that party. 18 political parties registered to participate in this election. Only one political party is kicking against it. If there is fuel hype, the whole political parties will be affected. If there is currency redesign and it's an attack, the whole political party. So that means something is fishy. There is something they are not telling us about what they plan to do. Let me ask you, in the history of Nigeria, which candidate and political party used the bullion van on election day in the morning in Nigeria? So which political party that when the presumption of innocency, of the presumption of regularity can be said to have stashed money somewhere?
Okay, but before Mr. Gaba comes in, I mean, if the president says, look, he supports this policy, it is a policy of his government, should it matter what any other candidate says?
So that's what's happening. So good point. So they are trying to blackmail the president into believing that he is working against their candidate, so he will permit them to influence the instrument of the states in their favor. Watch the pattern. You remember it was not long ago, they addressed a press conference where they were trying to intimidate agency of government, giving them 72 ultimatum. Meanwhile, that candidate has not answered the question that has lingered and is lingering in the minds of Nigerians, that in 2015, Alpha Beta transferred $4 million to a firm and an account in London belonging to somebody linked to a drug cartel in Barranquilla in Colombia.
That is what's being circulated, not by any government agency. So that is a product of proper investigation by any government agency.
So if there is anybody that the Nigerian people are deserving of the answer and the responses, it should be them. The point I'm saying, sir, before you go to him, and very important, that the government is the government of APC. The policies of this government are policies of APC. They have a manifesto. They have a constitution that guides. The government, Buhari told the world that I will leave a legacy of free and fair election. They wanted him to allow them to rig the election. Now that he stood his ground, they went back to the same place where Principle A applied when he blackmailed the president.
Is that by inference? That's the way it comes across to you. Has anybody categorically said that?
Everybody, look at the newspapers. All the newspapers, I had your newspaper analysis today. Everywhere, Tinubu, this is one, this is one.
But isn't that...
fuel crisis, Naira, the design to sabotage.
So that's not third party too?
No, but who are representative of the voices of the Nigerian people?
That is why I said maybe because there is a kind of twist and a plot by PDP to usually hold everybody to jugular, because they are very good in this kind of thing, to kidnap the system in their favor. That's what they are doing. My candidate, the incoming president of Nigeria by the grace of God, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, clearly stated that if you like, keep holding the Naira. He's talking about the distribution, not the printing. And I also said again, if you like, put ink on it. You know about the conspiracy that is being peddled by the opposition, that the Naira can be reprinted.
Was that by the opposition?
It's by the opposition.
It was Nigerians.
It's not by the opposition. It's by the opposition. They are saying that you can actually frame this Naira, you can counterfeit it. In fact, some of them are even putting the pictures and rubbing on their hands. The person that is championing this is Gudaje Kazaure. He's an opposition candidate. Who will tell you that he might not be working for the PDP because his party has no chance? So that is the situation.
Okay.
So that Naira redesign, Tinubu did not condemn the policy of President Muhammadu Buhari.
He did yesterday.
Tinubu is attacking the saboteurs within the chain of the distribution of the Naira. That's what he's doing. Okay. To me, by doing so, he cares so much for the common man, because the common man is feeling his same pain.
All right. Well, Akaida, I don't know if you remember the day that Buki said, well, she tried something with the currency. So I hope you're not a member of the opposition. If they don't interpret it that way, go ahead, guys.
Oh, thanks, Chamberlain. With the way Mr. Boala is laughing, you think maybe Mr. Garba might want to pick up comedy, because it seems to be cracking up Mr. Boala a lot this morning. But let's take the words of your presidential candidates in proper context. Let's even read it out to Nigerians. And this is what he says. He says, even if they changed the ink on Naira notes, whatever their plans, it will come to naught. Even if they change the ink on the Naira notes. And we know that it is a responsibility of a CBN to do that, just as he has done, the redesigning. And a lot of people were saying it was just a change of color. In fact, the CBN governor had said that this was approved by President Muhammadu Buhari. So maybe you are interpreting another way, perhaps because you're a party member, but this is clear. And he talked about the petrol situation as well. So in the light of that, saying that the CBN governor is one responsible for that, and it was approved by the president, really, what's the point in really trying to cast a different light on it, other than what a lot of people believed that they heard? That's for you, Mr. Garba.
I think that is exactly why we are here to clarify this particular issue. The president, the CBN governor, and Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu are on the same page. They are the victim of the same machinations of the opposition within the system. That is the case. Asiwaju is not against the Naira policy, like the Naira redesign policy. No, the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, who approved it, no, the central bank, who is responsible, the central bank governor, who is responsible for the policy. So the issue we are having is that there is a Naira redesign that is supposed to go in to deny vote buying. Vote buying, you know, is a mercantile enterprise of the PDP. That is even the reason why, on coming of the APC, this thing has been dismantled completely. So they see this as an opportunity for them to cash out. So they went in against the CBN governor, attacking every single first set of the Nairas that were printed. Some of them went to the point whereby they would just pick the Naira and put some chemicals on it to show that it is not well done, and some even go ahead to even design it, you know, using Photoshop to show that you can actually be able to counterfeit it, discrediting the new Naira, casting doubt on the minds of Nigerians about the stability of this Naira. So that is why our presidential candidate is sounding the alarm, echoing the pain of the ordinary people. They need this Naira. This Naira, the design has been done 90 days ago. The monies are supposed to be in every nook and cranny of Nigeria, but because of the antics of the opposition to that particular policy, Nigerians are worried and concerned about the fact that if this Naira redesign has actually been done. Remember, even the PDP candidates, some of them are saying that the Naira is not altogether available and that it should be extended. So this is the issue that is taking place within the system. Asiwaju is only echoing the pain of Nigerians. He knows that on the foil queue, the PDP has created within the system.
Quick one, so I can get the point you're making. Pardon me, quick one. Yeah. So you said that the PDP has asked, who in the PDP, or who are the people in the PDP that have called for an extension of this policy?
No, the thing is, right, you see, the establishment of Nigeria, as I said, this is a capitalist state. So whether we like it or not, there is a private sector, great private sector participation, also in addition to the public sector policy implementation and interest. So when you marry these things together, you will see that there are some remnants of the PDP in the private sector that are responsible for this distribution. Don't forget, it is the candidate of the PDP that spearhead the privatization
I'm trying to
of the
understand that particular point you made.
To help in servicing the common man,
right?
But now this,
I'm
because
trying
they are in
to
the private
understand
hands,
the
they are
point.
causing
Pardon
these
me.
problems.
Let me just bring the question in. So you said that the PDP, or members of the PDP, have called for an extension of this, swap, the Naira redesign, and all of that. So I just want to know, do you have it on authority? Who are those members of the PDP? So at least Mr. Bola can respond or otherwise.
Is that question at me?
Is that question at me or at
That's
Mr. Bola?
for Mr. Garba. Then I'll take it to Mr. Bola. But I wanted to get, who are those PDP members you talk about?
The PDP members are the members that have stacked their funds in their houses because they are planning to do vote buying.
Identity.
We have a credible authority that the PDP candidate is planning to spend so much money per polling unit so that he can buy votes.
How
and
much,
all these monies are already stacked.
How much did you hear
so
about, Mr. Garba?
they want to use that.
How much per polling unit did you hear?
Is saying that no, you can't buy Nigerian voters.
I'm trying to come through. How much did you hear per polling unit? How much?
Okay. Yes, a lot of money. I cannot be able to mention here to you because I don't want them to know that we knew their strategies.
Come on, Mr. Garba. You already told us. You already told us that they plan to spend money. I mean, if you have it on good authority, you can as well tell us how much.
Nigerians deserve the right to express their right without being nobody deserves to buy the votes of Nigerians.
All right.
No one.
Okay, so all right. Let's bring Mr. Bola in quickly. I know this has been a lot of back and forth, but I know it to understand maybe what's at play here so that at least looking forward to the elections, Nigerians know what to expect. And of course, they're not disenfranchised because I imagine the effect this will have on Nigerians. The allegation is rife that your party is looking to cash in on this. In fact, almost immediately there was a statement put out by your party. But in the light of the statements made by the APC's candidates, it will look like you are even supporting the president in the Naira redesign, in even when you said that he wanted to leave an electoral system that is better than what we've seen in the past. So would you commend President Buhari on those points at least?
Today, they want to sail the president over. They are classifying in this interview that the president is a member of PDP. You have asked him question. Chamberlain has asked him, who was the person who approved the policy? Is the president. He said PDP are the ones stashing money. So PDP should be the one to cry that this Naira design will mean that their monies will no longer be relevant. In the same breath, you say A, you say B, and you're confusing yourself. Heck, I'm even surprised that this morning, it is the opposition that is clapping hand for the president's policy of delivering a free and fair process, confidence in the process. It is so shocking. The world is surprised today that it is the opposition saying good. And they are now saying that the policy of their party, led by their candidate, is anti-people. So let's go to the people. If it is about the people, in the past 8 years, there have been series of fuel scarcity. When was the last time Asiwaju came out and spoke for the people? When the issue of Naira redesign was introduced and announced 3 months ago, where was Asiwaju? And if you say that he is concerned, he's expressing the minds of the people, does it mean that Asiwaju has been denied access to Villa? They are good in organizing conferences. You have asked series of questions here. I have not been able to say anybody. We have credible evidence. Somebody told us we had it. You ask him who, and he does not have. But let me tell you what is happening. It is called pantophobia. Increased anxiety that is triggered by the fear of failure. It is staring at them right in the face. They are picking anything they can see. In the kitchen sink is a weapon they throw. But this, what is happening is in local colloquialism in Hausa, when somebody say, do kanshehu, meaning that it has come to the point. They are hailed by the balls. Yesterday, American Embassy, and true to their promise, announced visa restrictions on individuals that will make any attempt to compromise the election. The international election observers are already in the country. The world is watching at people who wanted to use money to compromise the election. They want to weaponize poverty with money. And the government came with a policy that should be clapped. 18 political parties. It is only one political party responsible for the chaos and the problems we have found ourselves in the last 8 years. They are the ones that are crying foul against the very president they claim is their leader. But today, I think that the president should have a reason to sip his coffee or tea or cappuccino or anything, that he's gradually been trying to vindicate himself from the kind of problems we have come into. Who in the world and in this country is not excited that electoral reform is now increasing confidence in the voters? Who will not appreciate the fact that Nigerian people should be able to have their voices and not to be compromised by vote buying? That today, members of the same party, of the same government, and we told you, Kayode, that a kingdom divided against itself cannot stand. We told you, and I said it here, that their manifesto is anti-Buhari. We told you here, they were the ones behind the removal of INEC through the court, through the government, and the persecution of CBN governor. We told you. Now these things are coming to fore. It's not about Nigeria. It is Emile Kon. When the first I Have a Dream Emile Kon speech came, what did he say? The target was still the president. Yesterday's on, the target was still the president. The first time he said, O Shekini, Olule, O Shekeji, Olule, O Sheketa, Olule, Ore, Shekoroni television. This was what he said. And then he went back to the same spot.
Well, Mr. Boala, it's an interesting way to look at, the positioning of the candidate of the All Progressives Congress, which is what I want to review yet again for his spokesperson here, Mr. Garba. It's interesting, Mr. Garba, that you say that he was echoing the pains of Nigerians, and Nigerians would have been keen on that comment if it was indeed to represent them. That's why I had to go back again to look at the statement of your candidate. But there's no way that it relates to the pains of Nigerians. He related it to his candidacy. He says, let them increase the price of fuel. Let them continue to hoard fuel. Only them know where they have hoarded fuel. They hoarded money. They hoarded naira. We will go and vote. So it's in relation to his pains, his worry about the elections as it affects him. I'd like you to clarify yet again, perhaps there's something we're missing, how this affects Nigerians.
I think there's a mistake here. We need to begin to see Tinubu as an institution, not as individual. He is the flag bearer of the largest political party in Africa. He's the flag bearer of the largest political party that emerged through a very democratic process. Every member of this party and every supporter of this government is behind Tinubu. So when Tinubu said me, it is all of us, the institution surrounding Tinubu. And at the end of the day, he mentioned we are going to vote. This is showing. But
Mr. Garba, pardon me, let me just come in here. But it would seem as if your candidate is in dissonance with Mr. President. Either it's his comment on the BVAS during his appearance at Chatham House, or even his reference to fuel scarcity. Mr. President is the Minister of Petroleum. Mr. President signed the Electoral Act, and the Naira redesign he approved. So it would seem as if your candidate is at dissonance with Mr. President's, hence the comment by, elder statesman Tanko Yakase. What are your thoughts on this?
No. You see, I don't know why we used to see government as a one-party, one-person kind of arrangement. Even in your family, even in the husband and wife setting, if you are a truly good husband, you have to listen to your wife. This is a government, a bureaucracy, an established institution that have a lot of chains of interconnectedness that have to come together and rhyme before decision can be taken. The fact that President Buhari is an individual, doesn't disconnect the fact that there is a presidency, there is executive council, there is legislation, and there's a private sector that is driving the entire thing called the government. So we shouldn't be able to carry Tinubu and carry Buhari and put them in a wrestle match. It doesn't make sense. But the fact that PDP has come in with their begging bowl, trying to beg the general President Muhammadu Buhari that has dismantled them, consistently worked against them since 2002, and succeeded in dismantling and sending them to permanent retirement. Now they turn back to begging ballers, carrying their ball and begging to query the president.
All right, gentlemen, we need to go. Let's get your closing thoughts on this one. So, yes, as you inch towards this election day, February 25, in addition to your thoughts, do you think that the tides might have swung in favor of the APC?
No, it is obvious that PDP is in the pole position to win. The facts are there. You can see even directors in their campaign. That's how people are living. Directors in their campaign are living. It's like a house that is on fire. You heard him now. He said in case of Tinubu, he calls him an institution, but Buhari, he calls him an individual. He extricated Buhari from the system, that the system can compromise. But in Tinubu's own, when he said Emelo Konda, he's speaking on their behalf. Look at what is happening. When he said people will vote us, you would have asked yourself, who? The Nigerians that have gone through hell in the past 8 years? Now, look at their campaign. Shattered and completely obliterated. No ideas, incoherent coordination, problems every now and then now because of the effect of pantophobia. Right. Anything they can hold on to. The president, let me tell you the last one before we go to him. The next stage, because this is one stage we don't grab them. The next stage is they are going to compromise BVAS. They imported people from abroad. They are trying to see how they can compromise.
BVAS is here to stay.
Yes, BVAS is there. So they are now trying to compromise. But in the coming days, you will see more. God don't catch them.
You can never be able to compromise BVAS. You can never be able to compromise the credibility of the election. You can, and you shouldn't forget that it is the same APC that signed the Electoral Act into power because we control the majority of the government, and we gave the Electoral Act permitting BVAS. So let me tell you this: when you look at the election is clearly in the win for the APC. We have 22 governors of the APC. We have 5 governors of the PDAPC. If you know about the PDAPC that are president, we have 5 governors of the PDAPC. We have so many. In fact, even the governor of Adamawa State, my state, he's a G5 candidate. He's working against his own.
We thank both of you for coming on. Adamu Gaba, Deputy Director of Media for APC's Independent Presidential Campaign Council, and Daniel Bola, spokesperson at Atiku Okawa Campaign Council. So that's for the PDP. So thank you both for coming on today.
Thank you for having us.
Let's quickly just have... There you go. Not sure the camera has got that one. But just a quick one for your the tweet here coming through from Festo says, all we are saying, give Nigerians fuel and stop this blame game. Nigerians are tired of suffering and smiling caused by endless fuel scarcity. Under the past PDP administration and current APC administration, so both of you, he says, are culpable.
He's an obedient. that's
Well, man of good conscience says, I remember when we used to have pipe-bottom water in the local government provided for and managed by the LG Council. All that is gone today. Even well, the LG councils cannot dig. It's really sad. And yet the State Houses of Assembly have vowed to reject the amendment.
He says he's not surprised that local government autonomy was rejected by political elites. He says rejecting LG autonomy while approving financial autonomy for State Houses of Assembly speaks volumes. As it stands, the LG is a conduit pipe for corruption by state-level politicians, and they want to maintain the status quo. Why can't Nigeria, like other countries, hold referendum on national issues? This will undermine democratic growth, he says.
Well, there you go. That is the show today. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. I'm Train Balonuso. Goodbye.
Yes, indeed. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo.
And I hope at the end of the day, just like those politicians, we can all laugh as a better Nigeria emerges. Goodbye.